Hello, my name is Laura Ann Dominick, and I am the author of Oil and Water, which is available now on Amazon. My name, Opal, was the result of my birth. Not the birth where I came screaming into the world as a human child, but rather when my human body died and I became what I am now. By vampire standards, I was young, but I was still regarded with respect and some fear by many of my fellow vampires. This was thanks in large part to the events that took place the night of my rebirth, though I didn't fully understand them. My eyes had opened that night, nearly 10 years ago, under a palm tree in the woods. The wind whipped around me, and I felt the beginnings of rain. I had no memory of how I got there or even who I was. Since then, I've heard from others that my inability to remember my life as a human was not typical, and I'd never known why that was the case with me. As I lay there, I felt damp sand beneath me and ran my fingers through it, feeling the details of every grain. I pushed myself easily to my feet, moving lithely and quickly, something that felt natural if only because I had no point of comparison from my time as a human. I glanced around, wind whipping my wet hair into my face. There appeared to be a rather large amount of nearly dried blood where I'd been laying, on the tree, and all over my clothes. I did a quick mental inventory and decided I wasn't hurt. I was, however, hungry. I caught a whiff of something sweet on the air and tried to follow it to the source. It didn't take long. A few yards away, a man lay sprawled across a large boulder, a trickle of blood in the corner of his mouth. His eyes were closed. He was either dead or unconscious, but that little stream running down his cheek was the sweetest smelling thing I could imagine. I leaned down and licked it away, feeling my canines elongate into the lovely fangs I've been fond of since that very moment. There was a moment where I relished the feeling of that one drop on my tongue. I savored the stillness before I would feed, before I would kill for the first time, even though I wasn't yet fully cognizant of what I'd planned to do. I was running on pure instinct. Dropping my head to his throat, I sensed more of that nectar just below the skin and let my fangs graze the length of the vein and artery there. I felt a sensation not unlike the thrill of sexual arousal just before I sank my fangs deep to open a fount and felt the decadent rush of blood over my tongue. I gulped it down, not stopping even when I felt him stir and groan. No, not dead, I thought. Not yet. I wondered if remembering my human life might have changed my actions, or at least might have made me feel guilt or hesitation, but I was entirely driven by the animal inside. I grabbed him by the hair and pulled his head back to keep him from moving. I had no intention of releasing him before I was finished. The rain was falling freely as I drank until it seemed there was nothing left inside of him. When I pulled away, his eyes had fallen open, glassy in death. They had been lovely, a rich and earthy shade of hazel. I nearly felt a sting of regret at the beauty, but I felt a power coursing through me that made me immediately forget any concerns I'd had up until that point. I had felt normal upon waking, normal for a vampire anyway. Yet after feeding, I felt like the gods themselves dwelled within me, granting me a strength and confidence that rivaled their own. I walked through the woods I'd been in and found myself on a beach. I could hear the waves crashing and the wind whistling relentlessly, the rolling thunder and the musical sound of the raindrops pounding on the sand and water. There was no natural light. Any man-made lights were too far off to be of any use, and yet I could see every grain of sand. I could see the fish splashing just below the surface of the water. I could make out the vibrant and clear green blue of the sea. I could even sense when someone came up behind me, despite the fact that they'd been quiet as a ghost. "So you fed already," a woman's voice said. "That's good." I spun around, my instinct and the strength I'd felt after feeding prompting me to lash out at the intruder. It was a young woman. She was classically beautiful, but something dark flowed beneath that beauty. "Whoa, girlie," she said, putting her hands in front of her as though to calm a wild horse. But with a shift in her weight, I saw she was ready to fight if need be. "I'm just checking on you. That first wake-up can be a real bitch, what with the primal hunger, the need for the first blood and all." It was the first real thing anyone had said to me since waking up, except for my first kill who had simply said no. I very quickly started checking off boxes in my mind that had just as quickly been thought of in the first place. Shared language. Check. Not aggressive. Semi-check. Name? Big, fat question mark. Who are you? I demanded. She gave a slight smirk. You don't remember me? She asked. No, I admitted, not feeling any calmer and ready to strike. I don't remember anything. My aggravation was growing. I nodded back toward the woods behind her. And I've already killed someone tonight, so unless you want to be next, you better tell me what I need to know. The woman's smile never moved, but her eyes widened as though she'd heard something exciting. They were an intense shade of bright orange gold and surveyed me in a way that made me feel exposed. Well, that makes 2 of us with a body count tonight, she said, letting me know that she was as dangerous as I was. Why don't you come with me and we can chat, girl to girl? She winked at me and motioned for me to follow her. I let the rain fall on me for a moment more before I obeyed, my thirst for answers nearly as intense as my earlier thirst for blood. She led me to a car that was parked in a lot through the woods and told me to get in. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust her, but I had no other options. Plus, I had the sensation that if it came down to a fight, I would win. I decided I may as well be warm and dry with the opportunity to find out more about who I was and what had happened to me, rather than cold and wet wandering in the woods. Once in the car, she started to drive us off of what appeared to be some kind of barrier island, wherever we were, and through several others. After nearly half an hour of silence, I finally spoke. So, are you going to tell me who the hell you are? Or who I am? Or why I woke up on that island? The woman smirked again. Her honey-colored hair had begun to dry out and somehow looked as perfectly coiffed as if she'd been to the salon rather than in a tropical storm. I'm Amber, she said, looking at me and batting her lashes. Like my eyes. I'm your sire. What's a sire? I asked. It means you have me to thank for your new life. You were going to die in those woods. When you did, I made sure you came back even better than before. She looked at me, realizing I wasn't getting it. I felt a heat behind my eyes, a rage beginning to build. But as far as who you are, I'm thinking maybe you're Scarlet. You don't know? I asked, my frustration peaking. I thought, I know what your name used to be. She waved her hand dismissively. But it's not your name anymore. My name wasn't Amber when I was a human, and the old name doesn't matter for either of us. Eyes are the key, and yours are a stunning shade of red. I pondered this for a moment, my anger subsiding. I didn't know if I was like this before, but my emotions seemed more than a little volatile. Scarlet. I tried the name out. Amber looked back at me and opened her mouth to speak, but then paused. Wait. She stared into my eyes, concerned. Your eyes had definitely settled on red. Okay, I said. So, what's the problem? They're not red. Not anymore. Amber sounded troubled. They were bright and fiery red. They're softer now. Lavender or gray? Maybe a little of both? That sounds pretty. Is it bad? I asked. There was no insecurity in the question. I was merely curious. It's definitely not normal, she replied, a look of unease coming across her face. I'm going to hold off on naming you for a bit, though. Shit, I thought you were difficult when you were alive. For now, just assume I'm talking to you unless I directly address anyone else until your eyes finally settle. I pondered the strangeness of the moment. I sat in a car, in terms of both information and destination, completely at the mercy of someone who claimed that she had saved my life, but that I was not alive, even though I felt decidedly so, who had claimed that she, and had implied that I, was not a human. I could remember what humans were, and I had the sensation that I should have been one, but was unbothered by the indication that I may not be. She assumed responsibility for naming me, yet refused to do so. and she seemed to have no issue with either of us killing humans. Not that I had any kind of love or affinity for humans. I couldn't even remember any I'd ever known personally, unless you count the man I'd killed in the woods. Who was he? I asked out loud, suddenly interested. Who? Amber asked, her own mind elsewhere. The man in the woods. You said I would have died back there if you hadn't come along, which I guess I did anyway. You also said you made sure I came back, which means you were there when whatever happened to me happened. I feel fairly certain that an unconscious and injured man would not just coincidentally be lying a few feet from where I died and came back to life, so I have to assume you knew who he was. Amber raised an eyebrow at me. You're smart. That's good. It'll get you far in this life. She turned the car onto a highway and hit the gas hard. There was a pregnant pause before she said, He had drugged you and taken you to those woods. But why? I asked, unable to comprehend why he would do that. No good reason, girlie. I was already there and saw you both. Thankfully, I'm stronger than he was, but you were wounded. Badly. You were probably going to die, but thankfully, I'm a vampire and you needed vampire blood to survive. I gave you some of mine, but by the time you had enough to heal up and pull through, your wounds had already turned fatal. When you died, because your blood bonded to the vampire blood, you became like me. Then you found the only living body in the area to feed on and finish your transformation to secure your new eternal life. So he deserved to die, I said, staring out the window at the rain, trying to make sense of what I knew and what I felt. Because he drugged me and kidnapped me and killed me. Amber laughed. Sure, if you want to justify it, but why? I don't understand. I felt surprisingly calm, despite her patronizing tone. I had the feeling that death shouldn't be random or cruel, but I also didn't know why I felt that way. There was a detachment that never struck me as odd. It was just how I felt. I couldn't remember anything from before waking up in the woods, but there were certain emotions I sensed I should feel, or things I sensed I should be thinking, but they were distant, as though I was trying to see them through fuzzy binoculars. I needed Amber to explain. She shook her head. At the end of the day, does anyone expect the lion to justify killing a gazelle, or the spider a fly? She smiled at me, her fangs showing. Not threateningly so, but to prove the point. Kidding. Mostly. I actually agree with you. There are certainly some people who deserve our wrath, and we have that right. We are gods to them. We can mete out justice and pain as we see fit because we are the predator. They are the prey. All we have to do is find the fun in it. It made sense. If we were truly superior, and given the euphoric rush I'd experienced after that first kill, I believed that we were. There was nothing to stop us, and no reason to care about the insignificant deaths of those beneath us, especially of those who would harm others. I stared out of the window as we drove into a city. And how do we do that? That's up to you.